Our first speaker tonight is our first lady of math perspectives. Originally from Vietnam, Nhung came to Canada at age 5, the youngest of 6 children, with her family and a widowed mother. Dr. Tran-Davies attended school for 22 years, all of them in Edmonton. She graduated from the University of Alberta Medical School in 2002, completed her family medicine residency in New Brunswick in 2004, and spent a year roaming around the Maritimes before returning home. And we're glad she returned home. She shares a family medical practice in Kalmar with her husband, Grant, the good-looking one. They have 3 children, ages 4 to 9. Nhung is particularly proud and happy about the registered charity foundation she founded in 2013. Among all of her other endeavors and her busy medical practice, Nhung started a foundation, the Children of Vietnam Benevolent Foundation. It is intended to give the impoverished children of Vietnam hope and opportunities through education. Nhung loves to travel, to see the world and its many diverse cultures. Her special hobby is writing, especially poetry and children's stories. I suppose it is Dr. Tran-Davies' understanding, her vision of the difficult culture she left behind, where only tenacity, dedication, and hard work would ensure hope for happiness and success, that so drives this wonderful woman to do what she does to ensure our kids good education. Because, friends, I can tell you that long after all the rest of us are frustrated and exhausted and determined to throw in the towel, Nhung simply refuses to even consider giving up. That is why we are still here today, and we will still be here until this battle is won. Please help me welcome a courageous and determined leader, Dr. Nhung Tran-Davies.
Thank you, Sharon, for that. You're very kind. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker, and forgive me. So, good evening, honored guests, friends, and my fellow petitioners. I'm really glad that we have a mic that works this time, and that I can feel my fingers and toes this time around, because, yeah, it's hard to believe that it's a little over a year ago that we stood out in the cold, that one bitterly cold April day, to rally at the legislature for our children. Thank you for continuing to be on this journey with myself. I feel very honored that you have taken time out of your very busy day to drive the great distance just to be here tonight for our children. As many of you know from what Sharon had said, I am only a medical doctor. Our family came to Canada as one of the many refugees, boat people refugees from a war-torn homeland. Because her mother had only $1 in her hand, she knew that people can take everything away from you, but they can't take away your education. I carried that lesson with me through 22 years of schooling in Alberta, and now, having practiced medicine for over a decade, I have had the privilege of working in developed countries like the Gambia, Africa, where I see how valued education is. How children would walk miles in their bare feet just to get to school. Here in Canada, I have worked in the inner cities, and I see the poverty in our neighborhood. In my office, I see the broken spirits of a child and the heartbreak of 1,000 lives. What binds all these stories together is education. For it is education that heals. It is education that frees the spirit from the chains of hatred and ignorance. And it is education that lifts a person from poverty and society from injustice. And that is why I get so upset when I see how our government in this land of opportunity is squandering our children's opportunities to a good education by wasting millions of dollars on unwanted, unproven, and detrimental fads and trends on our children. We are here today because of the schools, because of our teachers, and it angers me when I hear these educational consultants disparage our schools as industrial era, telling our teachers not to teach, weakening our children's basic knowledge and skills. It is not acceptable to allow the breakdown of our children's education, thus closing doors on our children's future. Tonight, the focus is twofold. With respect to the math education, with your help, we made some gains last year, but the previous government did not go far enough for reestablishing the standards of practice. With a recent release of the C.D. Howe report, I feel we are finally vindicated, and tonight, with the help of Dr. Craig and Dr. Kotsky and all the mathematicians in the room, we intend to put an end to the focus on the discovery math in Alberta once and for all. With respect to education in general, the Inspiring Education Initiative has left many of us uninspired, with its intention to push our schools down the same discovery inquiry-based path. We have seen the harm that resulted with a discovery math. We will not stand by and let the same harm be inflicted upon our children's reading, writing skills, and basic knowledge. My disclaimer is that I am neither a teacher nor a mathematician. I, like many of you, are just a parent, an academic, or a professional. Our only stakeholders are our children and their future. The issue here is not about our teachers or the quality of teaching. We have thousands of excellent teachers. We have said many times before that we hold our teachers in highest regards. There is no profession that should be held in highest regard and respected and honored more than a teacher. They are our children's mentors. The issues we have are with the curriculum and the system that harbors education consultants who are pushing policies based on ideologies, not evidence. Critics like to call us old school or traditionalist, but I'm not too sure what that means, because what we're fighting for is to reestablish the gold standards of practice in education. In medicine, gold standards of practice are never outdated, regardless of the century. In medicine, you wouldn't be accused of being old school for prescribing exercise or a diet of fresh fruits and vegetables just because we have cars and highly technologically processed foods. We want balance for our children. We had a good balance when teachers were allowed to directly teach our children. Much like in medicine, where there are patient advocacy groups, we are our children's advocate. We are letting the educators and ministry know the effects of their decisions on our children. Just because we go to a doctor does not mean we let the drug companies and physicians do whatever we want with us. They need to get informed consent about prescribing certain medications. In education, we send our children to school. When we send our children to school, there is implied consent, implicit trust that the teachers, the principal, the ministry are equipping our children with strong, solid foundational skills and knowledge, that they are following evidence-based practices. This has not been the case in Alberta, and that is why we are pushing back. They can no longer experiment on our children. Our objective tonight, with the help of our esteemed speakers, is to discuss the concerns of with the direction of education in Alberta, to review the evidence-based teaching practices in education and math, and to restore excellence in the K-12 curriculum by developing hopefully a clear plan to stop this Inspiring Education Initiative. Discovery learning proponents like to justify their convoluted approaches by arguing that every child learns differently. But what better way to illustrate a case in education than to give you a case in medicine? A 60-year-old man comes to your office with diabetes. Just because there are 7 billion people on this planet does not mean I should prescribe whatever medication I feel like, because his body is different from everyone else's. There is a standard of medical practice that I must uphold, and I will prescribe the medication that has the best evidence for benefit for the majority of patients. He deserves at least that. And 80% of the time, it will benefit him because we are physiologically and cognitively more similar than we are alike. And I mean more different, sorry. To throw less effective medication at him before giving him the one with the strongest evidence is wasting time and allowing for this disease to fester and progress, possibly missing the window of time that could save his life. And that is what happens when our children are learning primarily through discovery. If we miss that window of time when the neurosynapses are forming, it can be harder for our children to learn with time. Our children would have missed out on building strong foundational skills and knowledge for their future. I would venture to say that pushing these counterintuitive and illogical approaches on our children would be equivalent to practicing educational malpractice. I have a summary of changes of what we accomplished last year with your help. And reinstating the times table, mastering the basic facts were some of them, and reintroducing the standard algorithms, but it was left as optional. However, this year we realized that proponents of the discovery math are still telling the students that memorization is not important. The pen and paper calculations are tedious, while calculators help with mental power. Because the standard algorithms are left as optional, some teachers are still not ensuring our children are mastering the standards. While our teachers are still confusing our children with, and others teachers are confusing our children with multiple strategies. This is why we need to make standard algorithms a compulsory component of the math curriculum. As a matter of fact, over 70 mathematicians in Alberta had submitted a position statement to the previous Minister of Education in February recommending this change. With the new minister, listen to the experts. Now we come to inspiring education. What is inspiring education? The former Education Minister, Jeff Johnson, tried to convince us that it was the public consultation process that led to the implementation of the Discovery Math. In fact, the Discovery Math was already underway in 2008, and so the Inspiring Education document was a document put together in 2009 as an afterthought to justify the changes that were already taking place. Inspiring Education wants to change everything about the way our children learn, because they claim that the world is changing rapidly and that they wanted to prepare our children for jobs that don't yet exist. They say they want our children to develop the so-called 21st century skills: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. But it begs the question as to how we ever got to the moon without critical thinking in the past, and how Leonardo da Vinci drew up the flying machine without creativity. They even went on to great lengths to draw up a wordy ministerial order in 2013 to ensure that our children would develop these so-called 21st century skills. But if you look back through the ministerial orders, you will find that in 1998, in the 20th century, our curriculum was already expecting our children to be creative and critical thinkers. The difference in 1998 was that there were clear directions as to what the schools and teachers wanted of our children. If you look at the current ministerial orders, I guarantee you will be as confused and lost as a child who's expected to find 4 or 5 different ways to multiply 8 times 7. So there really is no pressing reason why our world-class education had to change for the 21st century. Our education system was already preparing our children with a strong knowledge base and skills to prepare them for whatever was coming their way. What we are most concerned about with inspiring education is their philosophy, their desire to radically change the paradigm of our education system, just because we're in the 21st century and computers are everywhere. For them to think that this is justification to push for less emphasis on knowing something that is knowledge, to more emphasis on competencies or just knowing how to access information, is, in my mind, committing an atrocity to education. Learning how to access information is easy. It takes a day to learn how to access information. Even your 1-year-old can figure out how to use your iPhone. It takes 12 years of a child's life to know something and to know it well. That should always be the focus of school, much like healing should always be the focus of medicine. The key players in inspiring education, as you may know, was the former Minister Hancock and then Jeff Johnson. The steering committee was led by Dr. Sharon Friesen, the Dean of Education in Calgary. But also, she is the founder and president of the Galileo Education Network, which is heavily invested in inquiry, discovery-based type of learning. So you don't need to be a neuroscientist to figure out what the conclusion of the Inspiring Education Dialogue would be, even before it started. Inspiring Education was therefore neither an unbiased nor an independent assessment of our school system. They were following trends and gurus from around the world. The outcome was predetermined, and I would imagine that the Galileo Network has profited immensely with these early shifts to the discovery learning process in the curriculum. The thing they haven't pointed out is that a lot of these countries are actually seeing the detrimental effects of inquiry-based learning and are stepping away. And in fact, Australia recently did a curriculum review, and they are taking a step away from inquiry-based learning. So why are we pushing onwards with inspiring education? If our government continues to make policies based on opinions of TED Talk stars such as Ken Robinson, it would be like myself prescribing you medication based on the opinion of Suzanne Summers. I don't think that meet ethical standards of practice. The Inspiring Education Dialogue took place without a lot of us knowing. Between April to June of 2009, they had 3,800 participants, but as you can see, many of them were phone calls or people downloading a kit. Their forum in October of 2009 had approximately 1,400 participants. Of those, 63% voted for transformation. That's only about 900 people in Alberta who want to change, and they're going to change the whole system radically based on 900 people. Now that we've seen the detrimental effects of the Discovery math curriculum, over 17,000 people have signed our online petition against the math. Now that we know what the Inspiring Education is about, we have over 2,500 names on a paper petition and 1,700 online petition to end Inspiring Education. That is compared to the 900. So I don't think the people who volunteered or participated in the dialogue knew what they were involved with and what they voted for. Because, as you can see from some of the responses that they had posted, such as parents saying that they wanted their children to be inspired and contributing members of society, that the questions were probably very vague and open-ended. And as one of the Lethbridge mathematicians had pointed out, even when the mathematicians unanimously told the government that the government's decision to change the math curriculum was ill-advised, the government didn't listen. The meeting this mathematician felt was to claim that they had consulted all the higher education institutions in Alberta. And this is why I find it appalling that the Alberta School Board in this recent election would ask the candidates what they would do to move this inspiring education forward, just because 3 ministers of education had, as they had said, devoted countless hours and dollars to consulting Albertans. In medicine, regardless of how many millions of dollars and how many scientists have worked on a drug, as soon as you find out that it has harmed the people, you withdraw it from the market. It is not ethical to continue to push a product that is harmful. Why would we do this to our children? The ministry would deny that they are dictating how teachers teach, but as confirmed by a quote from the president of the school board, she said that our children are now learning through inquiry-based learning. And so the ministry is doing that. Taking teachers' autonomy away and making them facilitators for methods that are less effective is an affront to the teaching profession. Teachers know that they became teachers so that they can teach. This is what we want of our teachers, to be the expert and impart knowledge to our children. The ministry's responsibility lies solely in ensuring that there is a strong curriculum and that the standards are upheld. It only takes a small shift in philosophy to cause a dramatic tip in the balance of things and cause harm. The shift in education to less knowledge, less teacher-directed, less books, more competencies, more inquiry-based, problem-based, project-based learning, more digitally based curriculum is that tipping point. The proof is in the results. It's in the numbers, many numbers, and in the Fraser report recently showing that students perform better in schools where there is more direct instructions, where the expert, the teachers, lead our novice learners. Not computers, not anything. It's the teachers that make the difference, and that's where the investment should be. So in conclusion, we did not consent to the education consultants and government to experiment on our children with ineffective teaching methods. We need to stop the discovery method and any further implementation of the Inspiring Education Initiative effective immediately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nhung. You told it exactly the way it is, and you didn't leave anything compromised, so thank you again.